Section 2B, we're going to look at things that could potentially go wrong with experiments. Sometimes when people know they're a part of an experiment, they might act differently than they normally would, which would mess with your results. So we use something called blinding to help avoid this. So in a single blind experiment, the subjects do not know what treatment they are receiving. So we talked last time about placebos. We don't tell people, hey, this is the placebo. Hey, this is the real thing. We just tell them you're going to be part of an experiment, and then we give them the medicine and don't tell them whether or not it is the real treatment. And then in a double-blind experiment, neither the subjects nor the experimenters know what treatment they are receiving. So a third party, a computer usually, would assign people treatment. So it'd say like, patient 4 gets the placebo, patient 17 gets the real medication. And then the experimenters, while they're monitoring people, they just know this is patient 4, this is patient 17. They don't know until the end whether or not that person was getting the placebo. The reason we do this is to avoid bias from the experimenters. If they know the person is getting the medication, they might take extra good care of them to really prove that the medication works. If there's any sort of subjectivity in the response variable, so let's say like it's an acne medication and the doctor has to evaluate the person's acne, they might be a little bit more lenient with the rating of a person that has the medication if they want that trial to succeed and the medication to be proven effective. So we use double blind to make sure the experimenters don't know and they can't affect the experiment at all. All right, things we need to watch out for. Two groups of people, non-adherers and dropouts. So non-adherers are somebody who doesn't follow the treatment protocol. So if we have a weight loss drug and we tell people they have to exercise for 30 minutes 3 times a week and they don't do it, all right, and let's say they don't lose weight. Now, as an experimenter, I don't know, did they not lose weight because the drug doesn't work, or did they not lose weight because the drug requires exercise and they didn't do it? So they have now messed up my results. Okay, and then dropouts are people who begin the experiment but don't complete it. So let's say we had a 6-month trial and the person only took the medicine for 2 months. Okay, now my treatment group is smaller, my data is messed up. This could also indicate maybe that like the medicine isn't worth it. If they stop taking the medicine because of the side effects, then it doesn't really matter how effective it is if people can't take it because they can't stand the side effects. We also have to make sure anytime we have human subjects, there are some ethical concerns. The rule is the interests of the subject always take precedence or prevail over the interests of science and society. So we might really want to design an experiment to know if a certain thing works, but if that experiment is going to be harmful to people, we don't do it. So when we're doing experiments with human subjects, we have what's called an IRB, an Institutional Review Board, and that's just an outside party, usually a group of people that look over your experiment plan and say, yeah, this is okay, we're not harming people here. Informed consent, okay? We have to tell people you're going to be part of an experiment. We have to tell them how the experiment is going to be run. We have to tell them anything that could potentially happen to them as from being part of this experiment, and we have to tell them all of that before they agree to be part of the experiment. And then confidentiality. We don't publish people's names as part of a study. We can publish statistical like summaries, so like blank % of people, but we don't publish people's names or identifying information. Okay, when it comes to confidentiality, there's 2 levels. One is confidential, and that just means we don't publish information. So we might say like patient 23 had a 14% improvement. Okay, but the people that are doing the experiment in that case, like they have face-to-face contact. They know who the subject is, but we don't release that information when we publish the results. If a experiment or study is anonymous, then no identifying information is given ever. Okay, so the experiments don't even know who the subjects are. Last thing to know is when we are doing any sort of trial, especially with medication, we have to talk about this idea of balanced doubt. Okay, so we have to be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this medicine works, um, to be able to give it to half of the group in our trial. Usually when we do trials, we'll do half the group gets the drug, half the group gets a placebo. So we're not just going to give random stuff to people. Like, we have to be reasonably certain that, hey, like, we think this could work. All right. On the other hand, there has to be doubt that the treatment works to justify giving other people a placebo. Like, we know Tylenol will help you if you have a headache. So we aren't going to do a trial where we find people who have headaches and don't give them Tylenol, because we already know that it works. So there's no reason for us to give people a placebo. Okay, so it's a balancing act. If we knew something worked, we would give it to everyone. But when we don't know for sure, we're like, I think, all right, but I gotta test it to make sure. That's when it's ethically acceptable to give some people a placebo. Okay, and that is it for 2B.